Welcome, guys. Thank you for sticking around with us. Welcome to our sixth episode. My name is Bea Malika.
And my name is Joy, and today we are joined by my bass instructor and an amazing all-around musician, person, bassist, all of the above, Justin.
Hi, everybody. That was a nice introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, Joy.
Thank you.
Girl.
Yeah.
Good.
So we would like to start off. Could you give us a little bit of background or tell the audience about yourself?
Sure. That's you should probably have a pen and a notepad because it's a lot. No, but I'm not going to give you a whole bunch. No, but I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Justin Rains for people that are just tuning in and listening. Um, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I started playing trumpet first. I kind of grew up around musical friends, not a musical family, but like musical friends. And I grew up in church, and I went to a performing arts middle school where I majored in trumpet, and then I went to a performing arts high school where I picked up drums, piano, and I didn't start playing bass until the 10th grade actually. So trumpet was my main instrument for a long time, and then I picked up bass in 10th grade, kind of fell in love with it, and next step was Berkeley. I went to Berkeley College of Music from 2002 to 2006. But while I was there, I met a lot of great people that I still work with today. A lot of people in the industry that some of you probably already know that I went to school with. And that started my traveling career, touring career and everything like that. And so I mainly play bass for Israel Houghton and New Breed, and I've been with them for about 15 years now. And from playing with them, I've played with pretty much almost every gospel artist that there is in the industry, or I've played on their records, which has been a blessing. I've also toured with R&B artist Neo and pop star JoJo. And from I want to say from elementary school, I just kind of knew music was going to be the thing for me, but it was accompanied by my community. So I had a lot of great teachers. Now that I think about it today, and then kind of going back, I remember in the 5th grade when I started playing trumpet, the kindergarten teacher, she pulled me aside and she showed me a videotape of Miles Davis. And I was like, "Are you showing me this because I'm black, huh?" you know. But but at that time, I mean, it resonated with me. I'm like, wow, this guy's playing the instrument that the school gave me, and that kind of started, the whole musical path, if you will, and then being around a community of musicians that mentored me. They saw something in me at a very young age that I might not have seen, or I treated music like it was video games. Like everybody else was at home playing video games, I was at home transcribing Miles Davis solos, and I thought that's what you did, if you were into music. But I guess that was the nerd in me, if you will, So, um, but yeah, so I've as far as that being my career path, it was just something that I kind of fell in love with. It was something that I was good at. It was a gift. It was a talent, and I enjoyed it, and still do to this day. So it's a little bit about me.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So for this episode, we're focusing mainly on finding your sound as a musician and
Yeah.
like leaving your print in the music society as far as your sound.
hmm
So to get started, you said that you kind of started out in church and now you actually are a gospel player. So
hmm
how do you think that what you're surrounded by as far as different experiences and stuff like that affects what your current sound is?
Wow, that's a really good question. So growing up so I had the best of both worlds actually. So I grew up in church, but then I went to a school for performing arts. So in school, I'm learning more about classical and jazz. So those were my main focus. My main focus was jazz and classical. And it wasn't until high school that I actually started playing in church. Once I started playing bass in the 10th grade, I really wasn't playing trumpet in church. I was playing trumpet in my orchestra, in the all city and the all state jazz bands, and the in the big high school orchestras and stuff like that, and the junior symphonies. Like that was mainly what I played. Um, but once I started playing bass in 10th grade, like I said, that's when I started playing more in church. That's where I kind of got my teeth cut, if you will. um, like I played, the jazz bass lines in high school, but it wasn't until I was in rehearsals at church and I had to learn all this music by ear, and it's a lot more complicated than what they're giving you in school. Having that side of music shaped my ear, and then going to school, I'm able to comprehend exactly what's going on. I'm able to tell the people at church, this, oh, that's that kind of chord, oh, that's that kind of chord, that's that kind of scale. I'm able to tell them that because I go to school for it. um I am a believer, so me growing up in church plays a huge part. Me playing in church plays a huge part in into who I am today, actually. Because once I went to college, in my head it was all gospel. That's all I listened to. That's all I played. That was my main thing. I played jazz and I played classical. I enjoyed the music, but it was mainly gospel music. But in gospel, the genre it's a melting pot of all styles of music. That's why you see a lot of people that grow up in church, or they grow up playing gospel. They can play different styles of music. You'll see them on different award shows playing for country artists, or playing for R&B or pop artists. You'll see them playing so many different styles of music because in gospel, it's a melting pot. So and some of us, I speak for myself. I challenge myself to be as authentic as possible to whatever genre is placed in front of me. But my main thing is gospel music, if you will. But to wrap up the answer to your question, um, growing up in church and my faith has definitely, I guess, made that connection from there to where I am now. And kind of going from playing for one gospel artist to one of the biggest gospel artists in the industry, and still being with them, winning Grammys with them and traveling the world, and making a name on the musician side, of the industry by being with that particular artist. And it's afforded me a very successful life, so yeah.
How did you get your own personal sound across while still giving into like what the genre needed?
Sure. So one thing about finding your own sound is copying others. That's how we learn. For So before getting to Berkeley, um, my main influence were the local guys that were in Pittsburgh. I modeled my sound after them. Or back in that time, I'm a lot older than you guys. Back in that time, with that sounds so old. Jeez, we had CDs, and in the CDs were the liner notes, so you can always open up the CDs and see who played on what. So that was a huge thing that I enjoyed doing, and I would always see certain bass players on the records. I'm like, okay, these guys are doing something right because they're on everybody's album. So I would model my playing off of these different bass players. So getting to Berkeley, it was the same thing. It was, how do I find my sound? I need to dibble and dabble in pretty much everything. So there was a good 3 months where all I studied was Richard Bona. And then there was a good 3 months and all I studied was John Patitucci. So I would literally dive into these different bass players all the way to their posture. Even drummers, like if I was modeling after, let's say, Calvin Rogers, amazing gospel drummer, and he played with pristine posture. Whenever he played, he sat up very, very straight, and that was just his style of playing. So if I was studying Calvin, that's how I played the drums, like my posture and all. John Patitucci plays with his bass really high up. So when I was studying him, that's how I played. I mean, his rock and everything. So, when people would start saying, man, you sound like Richard Bona, then I would switch to the next person, because it's like, okay, I've taken that particular quality. I've taken that quality from you, from you, from you, from you. And for me to find the sound that I have now, it actually takes a while. Believe it or not, I really didn't know what my sound sounded like until maybe the past maybe 8 years, and I've been doing this for a long time. But people outside of me noticed it before I did. They're like, "Oh, I can tell when Justin's playing." I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right, cool." you know, Justin, you played on this album? Yeah, I knew it was you. How? Like, how'd you know? And it was one thing that and you can ask Joy. Like, it's one thing that I tell my students today is to record yourself, and then listen back and hear how you sound. You know what I mean? Can you tell the influences? Can you tell who you're influenced by listening back to how you sound? Record yourself and then listen back in 3 months, listen back in 6 months. Like, wow, I can hear my progress, but then I can also hear what makes me sound like me. I would do that. I would do that. So you begin to think of, that's what you would do, but I would do this. It's almost like having your own, it's like forming your own opinion. You know what I mean? Like, you have an opinion about this, you have an opinion about that. Like, yeah, but I think I like it this way. That's kind of how it will begin to form, because you're getting information from so many different mentors or so many different people that you enjoy. And in this case, bass players or just musicians in general. You're taking from this musician and this musician and this musician and this musician. And when you're placed in whatever setting and you're able to be authentic to that style, and they're like, open up, and they begin to hear the different influences. You know what I mean? And it just kind of merges together, and then eventually you have your sound, if you will. It takes, man, it takes a lot more than that too, because a lot of people play from their life experiences. Because music is what feelings sound like. There's those flyers everywhere. There's posters everywhere. I've got a picture on my wall over here that says music is what feelings sound like. But that's music is not supposed to be this technical thing. It's supposed to change moods. If you're mad, you listen to a certain song. If you're in love, you listen to a certain song. If you're sad, you listen to a certain song. Um, and you feel what these musicians are playing. You feel what these singers are singing. You know what I mean? Because they're singing from a place. They're playing from a place. So you have the aspect of what you're taking technically and licks and lines and stuff like that from different musicians that you enjoy, but then also your own personal experiences that you go through as you grow up. You're playing from that, and that's where that's where your sound kind of begins to form, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that was a lot.
So in regards to what you said about how you would study different bass players and like sort of take in their feel, would you also study other musicians out of your instrument?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think for me, it became easier to do that um, because I play multiple instruments, and so, but for even for people that don't play multiple instruments, learn to open your ear to everything else. You know what I mean? So as a bass player, if I want to play more melodically, I'm not going to listen to bass players. I'm going to listen to keyboard players. I'm going to listen to saxophone players. I'm going to listen to a lead guitarist. I'm going to listen to vocalists. That's what I'm going to listen to if I want to, be more melodic. If I want to play more chords, I want to listen to organists and keyboard players and guitarists and hear how they voice their chords and how I can apply that to the bass. You know what I mean? And because I am a drummer, my rhythm is pretty locked, with what a drummer would play, as far as syncopations and stuff like that, because I'm listening to the drummer as well. Like, oh, that drummer did that, so I can do that rhythm on the bass. So absolutely, I listen to everything. That was something that was taught to me at a very young age. A lot of my mentors would make the musicians teach the choirs. you know so they would say, all right, Justin, you come and teach the choir next week. I'm like, what? I thought I just want to play drums. I just want to play bass, that's all. But what it was doing is it was training our ear to be able to pick out what's going on in every element of music. But back to your question, yeah, everything that I listen to, I'm taking in, oh, the keyboard player did this, so I'm going to match what they play. That was a great melody.
Yeah.
Or the guitarist did this, or I'm going to match the background singers, or drums. So anything that kind of stands out, I'll definitely take from other instruments. Yeah.
Like interacting with the musicians you're playing with and
Oh yeah,
listening.
absolutely.
Super important.
Well, the question I was going to ask earlier was about sort of if you could speak on like the importance of tones and stuff like that. How did you navigate finding your own tone?
Um, Berkeley helped a lot with that. So Berkeley has this concert called Singer Showcase, and it's kind of like the American Idol of Berkeley. Everybody has to audition. I think when I was there, it was what, 10 singers or 10 or 12 singers, and then a full band. I mean, bass, two guitars, piano, organ, auxiliary, drums, percussion, three horns, three background singers, and sometimes strings, like the full shebang. Everybody had to audition for their part for Singer Showcase. It was the biggest event for Berkeley, and I remember I had to play 40 songs. Every genre is, yeah. Every genre is covered, from Bollywood to R&B to pop to classical to country to jazz to fusion to rock to metal to indie. Every because it was, the singers were given, they were given a song to sing, and then they got to choose whatever favorite artist they wanted to sing. So as a band, we had to listen and learn on every style of music and play it authentically. Uh, Jordan, you mentioned before. So me being at Berkeley, and Berkeley being a huge melting pot in itself, because you got students coming from all over the world. Um, I purposefully uh, tried to do as many sessions as possible. I mean, if they were like, "Hey, I've got this Broadway tune. Can you play bass?" Yes. Even if I couldn't play bass, even if I couldn't, even if I've never played the genre in my life, if they asked, I said yes. and what it did is it forced me to go into the library, pull up pull up that style of music, and listen, and like not just listen with my ears, but listen with my heart, listen with my soul, because they come from that culture. They're like, because it usually came from, I love your pocket, I love the way you play, can I get you on my on my record to play my style of music? And it's like, okay, yeah. And I would do my homework. That's one of the biggest things. I would do my homework. I would go and listen. Like, okay, these are what the notes are, this is what the feel is. Let me try to really engulf myself in this style, so that whenever I go to record this with them, they don't have to say anything to me. Like that was one of my things. And I think while at Berkeley, I had a really good reputation of, whatever you throw at Justin, he can play it. Whatever you throw at him, he can do it. And it's an attest to the work the discipline, the work. Berkeley has it's a huge. Well, when I was there, it was the start of Facebook. There was very little YouTube. The 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 access that we have today, it just wasn't there. But what they did have is they had the Stan Getz library, and it had records, CDs, cassettes, VHS of music from, I think I was at that time, it was what, 2003, 2004, all the way to the 1800s, 1600s, classical Baroque era, and had all this music there. And it's there for you. No one's going to tell you to go do it. Like, it's got to be something within inside of you that's like, okay, I want to learn more about different styles of music. Okay, well, you have access to it, so go and use it. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, being there and not being forced, but willing to learn different styles of music, and then bringing it back home to where for me was gospel music, and bringing those different styles into gospel, bringing the African style into gospel, bringing the Afro-Cuban into gospel, bringing like that those authentic styles into gospel music, and it enhanced my overall plan. They're like, that was real. That was. Are you from there? Oh, you're not. Oh, you're American. Okay, yeah. you know. So that played a huge part. And once again, I've always been open minded to every style of music. I don't have to like everything, but I'm open minded to it. Like, what can I learn from it? Because I never know when I'll have to play it. And while being at Berkeley, anything can happen. Like, I've played so many different styles of music just from walking down the hallway, or someone hearing me inside of a practice room, and they're like, I love the way you play. So can you play on this?
Was there ever a point in school, since you were saying that you said yes to a lot of different experiences, was there ever a point where you had a little bit too much on your plate and you had to like start picking which ones would be the ones for you?
Um, in school, not really. And I say that because I didn't know how to sleep when I was in school. And and Berkeley was literally 24 hours. Like, we had like studio sessions where they were in increments of 4 hours. So I could do a studio session from 4 to 8, or 10 to 2, or 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So like, I did a lot of those 2 to 6, those 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Recordings. Um, but in college, I as most college students, they just don't know how to sleep. It's especially at Berkeley, when you're surrounded, you're the entire school. You have one thing in common with the entire school, and that's music. You got 24-hour practice rooms, you got 24-hour studios, you have access to just so much, and you're around people that have that same passion and drive. Like, what are you doing after your class? Meet me in the practice room. Let's go and let's just shed. Let's not shower. Let's just be stinky, and let's just go shed and just be really good. but but I guess that just kind of goes to just the drive of the school and your peers. I want to say, well, maybe around the time I was doing Singer Showcase, because Singer Showcase took a lot of our time. So I wasn't able to take on certain projects because that took priority. You know what I mean? So I was, in some situations, I had to say no because I was doing something based on giving my word. But if I could do it all, I would do it all. And I definitely burnt myself out a few times, but I was in college. I wanted to experience it all. I wanted to do as much as I could and learn as much as I could at that time.
So looking back on your experience in college and thinking about it now, would there be any way you could have prepared for all of that? Or do you think it just you learned as you went?
I think I learned as it came. I think I learned as it
Mhm.
came, because if I think back, I probably would have studied more jazz bass before I got there. I mean, because I didn't really get into like Jocko. I didn't learn more about Jocko until I got to Berkeley. I told you, because I was all gospel. I was just gospel. I was the gospel encyclopedia. If you sang it, I knew it, I could play it. And that was my whole thing. Um, so I probably would have, studied more jazz before getting to Berkeley. But on the other side, I always had the mindset of just being open, you know what I mean, to whatever what was given to me. So I think the way that it happened, just me being that open and just learning as I went, I think that was probably the best way.
This is sort of off topic, but how did you go about maintaining your faith and keeping that strong during like all the madness at Berkeley, and even when you weren't playing gospel and playing different genres? How did you keep that part of your life going and strong?
Yeah, that's easy. Getting a community. You know, Berkeley's not a huge school, um, but at that time we had a group called Christian Fellowship that got together every Friday. During that time, we had gospel choir. Gospel choir was every Monday and Wednesday. That was an actual class, and 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 although it was more so it was genre driven by the school. Um, we had praise and worship and all kind of stuff, you know, inside inside of those classes. You know what I mean? But finding a church home was a big part of it, and then finding people that were also, we're in college, we're away from home. Finding people that were strong in their faith, or they were they were believers and they needed to connect with someone that was like, okay, we gotta keep this going. While we're here, we're gonna learn new things, we're gonna be around new people, we're gonna be around new experiences, and just kind of having like-minded people definitely helps with that. But that's always been a big part for me, and me being the gospel guy, that was the music that I was listening to was always ministering to me anyway. So yeah.
It's true. Cool. I feel like with every question we bring, you start talking about different things and then questions pop up, but you answer them as you keep going, which is so amazing. But I did have a question about immersing yourself into different genres. Like, what exactly do you do as you do that? Like the time that you spend either listening to it or playing it. What's your process?
My process usually is listening to it around the clock. You know what I mean? I may not go to sleep to it, but just kind of like listening to it around the clock. If I'm cleaning up a room, if I'm washing dishes or anything, just listening and listening and listening and listening and listening. They had that old saying, "You are what you eat." You know what I mean? So literally, you're listening to something so much that you become, when you sit down to play, you start to sound like it. Subconsciously. You're like, I'm listening to D'Angelo. When I sit down and play bass, I'm going to eventually start sounding like Pino Palladino, because all I'm doing is listening and listening to him. But there's a fine line, because all styles of music, they carry different spirits. I mean, like, I know people don't want to get too deep about it, but it's true. They carry different spirits. If I listen to Suicidal Tendencies, and I've got friends that have played with that rock band, if I listen to them for too long, it'll begin to like affect not only the way I play, but the way that I act and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's I use this phrase, that's a very old phrase. Eat the meat, spit out the bones. So whenever you're learning from these different genres, take what you can. Take what you can, whether it's a melodic thing, whether it's a technique thing, whatever it is, and then spit out the bones, the things you don't need. But most of it, it's literally just kind of just sitting down and embodying the music. I think one of my favorite styles of doing that with is West African, Caribbean style music, and just kind of just sitting there, taking it in, listening to it, vibing to it, and then trying to play it. And well, for me, I knew that I was doing the right thing, because whenever I would go to these different islands, and I would go to Africa, and I would play that style, they're looking at me like, how do you know how to play our style of music? How do you know how to do that? You're American. That's when I knew, like, it's working. I'm like, and one thing about me, I never wanted to go to a different country, play their style, and they're like, oh, silly American, you tried. Thank you. It was cute. You tried. I always wanted it to be like, wow, you really took the time to study our culture, and in a sense, with gospel, it's a cultural thing. I grew up in it. I grew up, my around some of the greatest musicians and singers that were right in my church. I grew up around that. Whereas someone that's in Brazil and they're incredible at their style of music, it's natural for them. They grew up around it. So that's something that I would have to immerse myself in to even get the feel. Or African bass players all over the continent of Africa, from West Africa to North to South Africa. There's so many different styles of bass playing. Some of it is moving a lot, but it's still in the pocket. Some of it's extremely melodic, um, but and very rhythmic, and it's something that they grow up in. So it's just like gospel is just natural to me. Their style, Makosa, is natural to them. You know what I mean? And to where I have to really listen to it and get it in my head and over and over again to even try to get a little bit, get 5% of their style of music, of something that they're born into. You know what I mean?
If you're trying to learn a new genre or you're going about learning a new style, but you're throwing yourself into it so much that you have like rehearsals back to back and you don't really have time for individual practice, how would you go about working what you're learning into what you already have to yourself or for yourself?
Um, that really, it's a lot easier said than done, but that really comes down to disciplined practice. You know, you make time for what you want. At the end of the day, you make the time um, for bettering yourself in whatever uh, technique or genre that you're kind of working on. And sometimes that practice includes that genre. Growing up, practice to me is attempting something that I cannot do or something that's difficult. If I have these back to back things, I already know how to play R&B. I already know how to play pop. I already know how to play gospel. So there, I'm just learning those songs, but I don't know how to really play Brazilian. So that's what I'll practice. I'll practice the things that that I'm not that good at. And there's a difference between practicing and playing. Well, I kind of just said that, but you can get more done or more accomplished in 30 minutes of disciplined practice than 2 hours of playing your favorite style of music. you know because and that means taking the time to execute everything, slow it down, make sure, am I playing it the right way, am I playing it the right way, am I singing it the right way, am I singing the right syllables, am I playing the right whatever. Am I going back to what you said, Joy, is my tone right? Because every different style has a different tone. That's why you'll see drummers with 30 different cymbals, because different styles require different kind of cymbals, or 12 snare drums or 40 snare drums, for different styles of music, or bass players with a bunch of different basses, for different tones. But each style of music has a different tone. And I hope I didn't skip over the answer last time when you were talking about Pino Palladino, and how the different styles of music require you to really dive into different tones. That D'Angelo is that really nice, round, warm bass tone. Jocko is very mid-range and straight, cut through. Larry Graham or any kind of funk is going to be bright, with the slap and everything. And you're going to have different styles of music where you have a nice overall tone where you can get a good finger style, a good slap, and all that stuff. So, but that comes from playing different styles of music. Whenever you're transcribing music, you're not just learning the notes, but you're trying to embody the tone as well. You know what I mean? So like, what's the tone that's coming from this instrument? What's the patch that this person is playing? How do my drums have to be tuned to match what's being played on the record? You know what I mean? And once again, this goes back to me kind of taking from different things to help create my sound, you know, from tone, from lines and licks and stuff like that. And all of that kind of embodies into kind of helping me, you know, create my own sound.
To what extent would you say that um I guess the instrument itself would affect your sound, like what strings you have or what sticks you're using or something like that?
It's very important. You know, I think, you know, some people have the debate of, you know, it's the player. I mean, which it is. You know, most of the time it is the player. But I've picked up basses where the setup was off and I felt like I sounded terrible on the instrument. I felt like I felt like I was fighting the instrument. I couldn't get comfortable on it or anything like that. So that plays a humongous part. What kind of bass you have, the quality of your instrument, the kind of strings you have. For bass players and guitarists, are your strings really high from the instrument? Are they set up at a good place to where you don't feel like you're fighting the instrument? Are your drumsticks too heavy? You know, so when you play, are you just bashing the drums, or are you actually playing them? Your drum heads are your drum heads, you know, are they tuned? Do you have a good tone out of your drums? You know what I mean? And even on the piano, you know, some of the on in the professional world, you know, let's take a Motif keyboard, a Yamaha Motif. Most people would just use about 14 of the 14,000 sounds that are in that keyboard. And on the professional side, a keyboardist might go in there and tweak it, go in there, adjust the EQ and the tone and the resonance and the attack and the decay. And then someone comes up that just uses the stock sounds and they're like, how do you make the keyboard sound like that? Oh, I had to go in and learn. I had to figure it out. You know, same thing with my basses and my strings and my amp and my drums and my gear. It all plays a huge part in building that sound, if you will, because it's having that quality instrument. My slogan with J Rain's lessons is us helping you, or me helping you find your own sound, or me um, helping you be an extension of your instrument. Like sorry, your instrument is an extension of you, and you want something of quality to relay that message out of you out. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean you can't play something that's cheap. Like I can take a $100 bass and I'm going to sound like me. Now there's going to be limitations. Like if I pick up a $7,000 bass, you're probably going to hear it a lot better. The tones are probably going to be a lot cleaner and a lot more a lot straight through, if you will. But that $100 bass, it'll still sound like me. It'll sound like $100 bass, but it'll sound like me playing it.
When you're listening back to your own playing or some recording you took of yourself, how do you know like what the line is for, okay, I'm gonna like criticize myself and try and figure out what I need to fix versus now I'm nitpicking and I'm just like making myself feel bad?
Yeah.
You just answered your question. If you're making yourself feel bad, that's where you've probably crossed the line. um, and the thing is, we are our own worst critics.
Yeah.
That's never going to change. You know, I was told to put out a bass record in 2007. It is 2020, and I'm just getting ready to release a single, and it took me forever, you know, to do it. And the thing is, the single I wrote 5 years ago, and it just sat because I would listen back and I'm like, oh, I can do that better. I can do that better. I'm not gonna put it out, you know. Or whenever I listen back to myself, enjoy, like I tell my students, when you're listening back, listen to the things that you can fix, but also listen to the things that you did that you liked. Pick those things out. Like, I liked what I did there. Okay, cool. I I, I already know where I messed up. I know. So you don't have to highlight that. I know where I messed up. I know where I need to go back and work on. But I'm not going to look over. I did that, but I did that good. I like how I sound there. Because whenever you're listening back to progress, especially for bass players, drummers, anything that you have to attack, you're not just listening for the notes, you're listening for your tone. Like, it doesn't sound like I'm playing at the instrument now. It sounds like I'm playing the instrument. It doesn't sound like I'm playing through the drums. I feel like I'm getting a nice tone and a nice touch out of my instrument. You know what I mean? Not just the licks, not just the notes, but the overall sound. It's like, wow, that's progress in itself. But like I said, you answered your question. If it's something where you're kind of like doubting yourself or feeling bad, it's kind of like you probably just need to take a break, take a walk, if you will, come back. You know what I mean? Because to me, I still do it to this day. I can wake up and not feel warmed up and sit down and play. I was doing a record maybe like 4 days ago, and there's a simple pentatonic line inside the record, and I went to play it, and I fumbled all over that that pentatonic line that I have my students playing, and I said, "What is going on?" I'm like, "You suck, you suck, you suck, you suck," and I had to like, okay, relax. You can play this. You know how to play this, and then execute it. But recognizing where you're doing well more than highlighting, the things that need to be worked on, because we're naturally going to do that.
So, since you're a teacher, um, what are your ways, or what's the word I'm thinking of? What do you build your, I guess, curriculum over, or what are the life lessons that you also teach that go into the music?
Oh, I like that. So my style of teaching is individual based. Growing up, I've had a lot of different teachers, and a lot of teachers had a strict curriculum, and I would take what I can from them. I would take from this, I would take from that, take from this, take from that. But one thing, I've always been a teacher. I've always been the kind of person to share. Even in middle school and high school, I've always been the kind of person to kind of share with people. And I'm a people person. I'm a communicator. If I wasn't a musician, I'd probably be a counselor or a therapist or something like that. But everybody learns different. Everybody. So I have a questionnaire that I send out to my prospective students, asking them what they want to learn. What do you want to learn? What are your interests? And I build the curriculum around that. But in music, most people are like, "Oh, I don't want to learn theory, and I don't want to learn that. I just want to be able to play in church. I just want to be able to play my favorite songs." Okay, cool. But in that, you're going to have to learn a little bit of theory. And one thing about me is application. When you're in school, you learn a lot of stuff and very little application. How do I apply this to life? Unless you know at a very young age that you want to be an architect or you want to get into engineering, math is going to be like, why do I have to study geometry? Why do I have to study trigonometry? Why do I have to study these AP classes in math? So my style of teaching in music, I give a lot of music to learn, meaning ear training. Like, here, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite song? All right, cool. Play me your favorite song. So that song is based around the C major scale, right? Let's go over C major scale. Okay, you got that? So that in that major scale there are numbers 1 through 7. If I play this note, what number does this note sound like? Oh, that's a 4. What's the fourth note in the C major scale? Oh, it's an F. Okay, cool. Let's say we want to play this in a different key. What's the fourth note in the key of F? Oh, it's B flat. Oh yeah, okay. You're learning theory. Oh wow, I see. I was told theory was this complicated beast of a thing. It's all how it's taught, and I like to get into the heads of my students to kind of see what's the best way that you learn so that we can accomplish your goals. I'll never force anything on my students, but I want to give as much information to the point where they get it. If you didn't get it, I didn't do my job. Even as something as simple as a scale, it's my job to help educate you and then help you to apply that that thing that I educated you. Or most of my experienced students that come to me, they've gone to school for music and they've studied with some other bass players and stuff like that. One of their main things is, I learned all this stuff, but I don't know how to apply it. So one thing that I pride myself on is trying to find immediate ways to apply whatever we go over. You mentioned life lessons. There's one lesson that was taught to me in middle school from my middle school teacher. He used to always say, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And when he said it, he was talking about a pencil. Because he required us to bring a pencil to class every day, because he would always make random marks. So I'm playing trumpet, and he is like, yeah, I don't like that note, Justin. Let's change that note. Do you have your pencil with you? You know what I mean? It's either yes or a no. So, and whenever most people didn't have their pencils in class, he was like, what? He said, what's my motto? What do I say? It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And that stuck with me more than ever once I got out of college, because it dealt with everything else but music. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. It's better to have communication skills and need it than need it and not have it. It's better to have knowledge of finance, credit score, uh, savings, IRA, changing a light bulb, changing a tire. It's better to have this and need it, have it and not need it, than need it and not have it. And I would really use that with like reading music, because everybody's like, oh, I don't really want to learn how to read. Okay, but it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, because you never know, somebody could hear you at Guitar Center and they're like, man, you're pretty awesome. I'm the director for Broadway musical Cats, and I'd love to hear you. I'd love to bring you on the road with us. Can you read music? And you're like, oh no, you just lost out on that opportunity. But if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. It's okay. But it's better, once again, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah, should we close it out now with last piece of wisdom for all amazing audience and members?
Yeah, man.
Thousands of fans.
Absolutely. Um, what would I tell myself when I was younger? One thing is, gain as much knowledge as you can. Like, learn your craft. Whatever your craft is, take the time to learn it. We live in a fast social media, 1 minute IGTV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. We live in that world where everything is fast, everything is trendy. Whatever your gifting is, learn your craft, learn it, study it, read the manual, dive into it. Make it something that you are the troubleshoot person, and create your own. You don't have to be the next artist. You don't have to be the next songwriter. You don't have to be any of that, but you have the ability to create. Anyone that's a musician, someone that's in visual arts, a dancer, any of that, you are a creative. You know what I mean? And create, create something, whether it's for you or whether it's for the world. Create. That kind of sums up really finding your voice. Create. Record something every day. If it's 30 seconds, record something. At about the 3 to 6 month period, you're going to get into a flow. You're going to get into a flow of things. We're just creating and creating and creating. These big time producers like Timberland and Pharrell and stuff like that, they've got thousands and hundreds of thousands of beats, 4-bar beats, 8-bar beats, songs that we will never hear. Michael Jackson has a vault of songs we will never hear. Prince has a vault of songs we will never hear. You know what I mean? Those 12 to 20 tracks that we will hear on the album are picked out of thousands of songs. Producers like Rodney Jerkins, he's got tracks that we will never hear, or tracks that were written 20 years ago that'll be on the next, up and coming, artist, if you will. So create, especially my young creatives, you guys, like, just write something every day. If you're a writer, if you journal, like, don't do it on Facebook, don't do it on social media. Get you a book, get you a pen, pencil. Don't do it on your phone, because a couple of days ago, all phones experienced something crazy. T-Mobile wasn't working, AT&T wasn't working. Everybody was freaking out. But write it down. Write it down. Bible says, write the vision and make it plain. Write it down. Create something every day. The title of this is Finding Your Own Sound. That's a part of finding your sound. Doing something every day. You don't have to spend hours and hours on it, but just get into a groove. Some of my friends that are in the industry, Tiwa Savage. I went to school with Tiwa Savage. Kirby, she came to Berkeley right after me. Charlie Puth, he came to Berkeley maybe a few years after me. These guys, they had that same create every day, write every day, create every day, sing every day, practice every day. But yes, study your craft, create, and learn from the people that have done it before you. And the people that they studied, and the people that they studied. It's kind of just goes back and forth. But that would be my main thing. And don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to fail. You know what I mean? Fail fast, and then learn from it. Everybody's afraid to fail. Everybody wants to put up their best clip on Instagram. They want to put up their best clip on YouTube and Facebook. They want to put up their best take and their best photograph. Fail often, and then get up and do better. Learn from the failures. Don't be afraid to fail. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wow.
Everything you said was amazing.
Oh yeah. Awesome. We gotta review this over.
Yeah.
What?
Listening to it.
Oh yeah.
All of our views. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for listening. What do I usually say in the outro?
Enjoy. Next week we have another one.
Yeah. Listen.
Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram at ETMS Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yeah, send us questions or topics that you might want us to tackle.
Yes, and also follow Justin.
Yeah.
The website for teaching is coming, but you can follow me Instagram at jraines112, JRAINES 112, and jraines_lessons, JRAINES_lessons. Those are both IG. If you're interested in lessons, it's jraines.lessons@gmail.com.
There you go.
Perfect. There you go.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.